Welcome to the Impact on the Ground podcast series. I'm Tiia Sammalahti, CEO of whatimpact.com, a tech for good company with the mission to become the LinkedIn of CSR. In this podcast series, we'll dig deeper into what it takes to make an impactful change in our society. I'll give a voice to charities, social enterprises, companies, grant makers, individuals, and government officials who all have one thing in common. They are keen to make a difference. We dive into practical solutions and observe the dynamics of those who have resources to give and those working with the beneficiaries on the ground. Let's start making an impact together. So, hello everyone. Today on Impact on the Ground, we have a special guest, Sarah Taylor, from a charity called Chapter 1. And Sarah is passionate about reading. Hello, welcome, Sarah.
Hi, Tiia. Hi, everybody.
Why is reading important?
Wow, why is reading important? Well, in this country, we have over 7 million adults who struggle with literacy, and 1 in 4 children who are getting to the end of primary school, age 11, without the basic reading skills they need for their secondary education.
That's horrendous.
It is.
I never knew that the situation is so bad. Why is that? Because everybody goes to school, don't they?
Yes, we have a free education system in this country, so that's why it is particularly shocking. It's got worse since COVID, so that has, held a lot of these children back because they missed big chunks of their education during the lockdowns. They didn't have access to the internet or to laptops at home, and their parents weren't able to homeschool them. So those children slipped back. The gap has got wider. We call it the education gap between the children who are more advantaged and more supported by parents and carers, and those children who haven't had the support at home and have slipped behind during COVID and now the cost of living crisis.
Yes,
so
there's a lot of hardship for sure, I have to say. Yeah. So Chapter 1, how long you been around as an organization?
Okay, well, we rebranded earlier this year. So we used to be known as TutorMate, which was the program, our online reading program, and the charity was called Innovations for Learning. It all started in the States 20 years ago. They launched the online reading program and developed it there. And then our executive director, Emma Bell, brought it to the UK in 2018. So we've been in the UK for 5 years now, just moving into our 6th year. And we've grown very quickly over that time. I joined the charity back in 2020, just before we went into lockdown. And we were a much smaller team then. We now have a team of 30 people, and we have over 120 corporate partners and supporting over 2,000 children.
That's a huge growth. That's a really huge growth.
Yeah.
So before we go to these corporate partnerships, could you explain what is your method of how you support learning to read, and then what are the kind of outcomes of your work?
Yeah, okay. Our core program is an online reading platform. This was developed, as I said, in the States, and then we adapted it for the UK in terms of UK spellings and cultural references and so on. So it's an online platform, and we use that to connect corporate volunteers with 5 to 7-year-olds in the classroom for weekly online reading sessions. It's just 30 minutes a week, but it's for the whole school year. So most of the volunteers will read from October through to early July during term time only. It's extremely convenient for the volunteers because they don't have to leave their desks. They can do it from home or from the office or even from a site office if they're working remotely. So it's very convenient, and that way we can help more children. And for the teachers, it's like having an extra pair of hands in the classroom. They can carry on teaching the rest of the class while each child has their lesson at the back of the classroom.
Okay, how does it work, like device-wise? Do schools offer those devices, or do children have some devices on their own?
We provide a laptop and headset into each class that's taking part. And we get that set up. We have a program manager who supports the teachers, does the training so they understand the platform and how it corresponds to the phonics system that they use. And they choose 10 children in the class who will benefit the most from the program. And they each have one individual lesson a week using the platform and the laptop and the headset.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh, cute. 5 to 7-year-olds as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
a wonderful age, I have to say. So outcomes, what happens if somebody gets this support, is a privileged child getting this support for a year? What is the progress?
Yes, well, that's a really important question and one that we're constantly looking at. We have two key measures in terms of the income of the impact of the program. One is the volunteering hours, and that's the sort of traditional way of measuring social return on investment. So we do track that in real time. We have a dashboard for each corporate partner so they can see how many hours each volunteer has done at any point, and then the whole team as well. But more importantly, at the end of the year, we can say what progress the children have made. So there are different levels within the platform. The teacher chooses a level for each child at the start of the year, and then the volunteer can put them up a level as they get more fluent and more confident at each level. And then at the end of the year, the teacher will confirm what level the child has reached at that point. So it's validated by the teacher, and all of our teams will get a report at the end of the year showing the progress that the children have made that they've been reading with. And that's the real impact data.
And what is then kind of, when you are looking for corporate partners and enrolling this, what is the difference? Kind of what kind of a change can happen in a year? How does it improve kind of their lives in general in the longer term?
Yeah. Well, there's lots of studies been done on the connection between literacy and life chances. So obviously it increases your chances of getting good GCSEs, in some cases getting any GCSEs at all. And that increases your chances of getting a decent job, a decent income. But there are also links to life expectancy. I mean, there's been a number of studies fairly recently which have made that connection that if you have poor literacy, then you're probably going to earn less than somebody with good literacy and have poorer health outcomes as well, mental and physical health outcomes over your lifetime. So there's lots of connections between, we call it reading for pleasure, which is what we're aiming to give these children, because many of them start school with very little literacy and already feel quite negative about reading because they don't enjoy it and they don't feel good at it. And we try to turn that round during the year so that they enjoy reading and they start to get better at it, because if you can't read, you can't learn, and your life chances are going to be quite limited. So that's really the aim of the program, to turn that round over the year. And the feedback we get from the teachers is that even 30 minutes a week can really transform these children, because they have an adult dialing into the classroom who just wants to spend 30 minutes with them each week, reading and talking to them and communicating with them. And that builds their confidence. So it's not just about reading, it's about self-confidence, self-esteem, communication skills. And the teachers say that some of these children start the year, they're very introverted, very shy, very lacking in confidence. But by the end of the year, they're transformed into children who are more engaged in the classroom and reading, looking forward to the sessions, and just very different children. And the reason we go in so early on in their school journey is because you can turn it round at that stage. If you leave it too late and they get more and more negative about reading and their education more generally, it's much more difficult to change that attitude.
Yeah, I believe that. And also, of course, even school subjects, they move on. So you have a lot of vocabulary that you would need to recognize, and if you cannot read,
Yeah.
you don't know, the content, and then your grades will be already going downhill, and it's very difficult to catch up. But
Exactly.
I wanted to just kind of say that here for the audience, and as we work with a lot of different kind of charities, and your kind of marvelous concept which harness digital technology and have this kind of a really solid concept. But also these kind of technologies have been adapted to mentoring and all this kind of like a support, like a adult support for younger people who might not be supported at home for certain reasons for these. And although sometimes we think that mentoring just fluffy stuff and this, what can a half an hour do, but actually just have a adult who shows up, cares, can really give advice. Is there, like, a year is a long time in a child's life, so it's some kind of a like a person you can trust that they show up for you and stuff. Of course it builds confidence. That's and it, as we know from studies, scientific studies, that it can be just one teacher, one person in a child's life can make a transformative life change because of the factor that they kind of then see opportunities which they might be seeing otherwise. Somebody believes in them and helps them in some way, and it creates confidence in the whole world.
Yes, definitely. And it's that regular, consistent practice that really helps the child. And there's been studies that show that the more adults are reading with a child, the more their reading will improve. So that it means parents, it means teachers, it means volunteers. The more people are helping that child, then the more they will benefit.
So what do the volunteers get out of this?
Well, sometimes I do actually think that the volunteers benefit as much as the children. I mean, we get fantastic feedback. We do a survey at the end of the year. But we also have volunteers who are posting on LinkedIn and other platforms about their experience. And many of them say it's their favorite half hour of the week, which I love to hear. And I think it's because everybody wants to help someone else. And that's the whole thing about volunteering. You feel good in yourself if you're helping someone else. And particularly a child or a young person who is otherwise struggling and may face disadvantage on various fronts. But you know that you're helping them by doing this. And it's just half an hour a week, which most people can fit into their busy lives, particularly when it's online. So it's a sense of well-being. And then that sort of spills over into other areas. So you feel more positive about your employer because they're allowing you to do this on company time, and senior managers often do it as well, which is really important. It can improve your own skills. So, I mean, I've done this myself with 3 children now, and I don't have a lot to do with very young people normally in my daily life, but I've had to learn to communicate with a 5 to 7-year-old and help them and encourage them. And that's a particular set of skills. You have to learn a little bit about phonics, which is how we teach reading in this country as well. So you're acquiring new skills. We've also heard people say that they've worked as a team, because we work in teams of 10 volunteers who read with 10 children, usually in the same class. And some of those corporate teams have been people who don't normally work together in a company. They might be in different locations, in different departments, but they've come together as a team to support 10 children in a class. And that's built new connections across the organization, improved team working and productivity. I think it also helps with things like recruitment and retention, because young people in particular expect their employer to offer volunteering days and to support local communities and charities. So I think it's more and more important for companies to support charities and to offer community volunteering, because that's what people are looking for from their employer.
Yeah. And also there are a lot of companies who have mandatory requirements nowadays in a contract work, in the government tenders, whether it's local or central. Social value is a mandatory requirement every tender, really, and contract. And it has to be very contract specific and location specific. I assume that you can do that by being an online provider, so you could kind of pinpoint the resources to certain areas of the country if required.
We can, and now we're in 10 regions across the UK. We're in Scotland and England, in most major cities and a few rural areas as well. And we add new regions each year. We can't be everywhere at the moment. We're expanding as quickly as we can, and we have a minimum number. We need 100 volunteers supported with funding to go into a new region. So this year we're going into, we've launched in Manchester this year. Next year we're launching in Birmingham. And I will be talking to our existing partners and new partners about supporting us in Birmingham. So we can launch in a new region, but we need a critical number of partners and volunteers and funding to do that. So we are able to fit in with a lot of people's regional requirements. I think social value is an amazing opportunity for charities like ours who are in various locations, and particularly offering volunteering opportunities, and also focus on education and skills and the next generation of talent. So we are able to meet a lot of those requirements. I think the challenges with social value are that sometimes it's very geographically specific. It can be, within a couple of miles of a project.
Yeah.
And that's not always helpful for a charity who's already working in certain parts of the country where the need is greatest, to be quite honest. And then somebody comes along and wants a project in a very specific region, or district. That's not always helpful. The timing sometimes doesn't work because we work on a school year. We can start volunteers throughout the autumn term, usually into January at the latest. But then we stop bringing on board new volunteers until the following September. So there is a timing issue for us, and quite often with social value, there are restrictions in terms of when the project starts and when the project finishes and when they want to be doing the volunteering. So sometimes those things can be a challenge. What we really need, and I think, social value is a huge opportunity for the third sector, but companies who are now bidding for these contracts need to involve charities in the early stages. As soon as they're putting in a bid, they need to be talking to the charities that they might want to work with if they win the contract, and getting their input into the planning for their social value program, because it's the charities that understand the issues and very often the local area and the people who are going to benefit from these programs. So it really needs the private sector to work very closely with the third sector at an early stage, and to let the charities know that they're including them in a bid, or to get their advice. And it should be a long-term plan as well. And a lot of these contracts are 5 to 10 years. The big infrastructure projects like HS2, they are long-term projects, so they can benefit the community for a number of years. But then you need an exit strategy, because when the contract comes to an end, you don't want to leave that charity or that community without any support at all. So you need to have some kind of exit strategy which goes beyond the end of the contract.
Yeah, well, that's a sustainable way of doing. But as you said, that I think this all starts in the if you're bidding for tender and doing social value for that reason. Of course, there are corporate social responsibility programs, and corporates are all pretty much doing a lot of good deeds and partnerships otherwise too. But then this contract specific requirement might be just like being kind of, I would say, more frequent request, kind of the changes in the partnerships and different demands and stuff. But like you said, that the bidding stage is very important stage to collaborate. And that's why we at What Impact are encouraging companies to first of all, put out these tender criteria in a place of an offer on our platform, even though you don't commit to anything. So you can kind of call out to suitable organizations like you who can take big number of volunteers and still in several regions to start the conversation and discuss about the timeframes and all that, whether it would be a match. Mm-hmm. And I believe in your case, if the program has certain limitations, but it's not the big limitation. It's just the summaries off, and otherwise, if you're running a contract for several years, there wouldn't be really like a commitment issue there, but it requires, of course, a consultation with you, that somebody can actually promise that they would be partnering with you. It's not like given.
No,
you have 120 organizations, and you said that of course you need volunteers, and you are one of these rare charities who couldn't operate without volunteers. But obviously charities need money to run themselves. You are not the volunteering, So,
exactly.
So how does it work, these partnerships?
Okay, well, we as a business model, we actually get most of our funding from our corporate partners. We get a bit of philanthropic funding from grants and foundations, and we also ask the schools to contribute from the second year they take part on the program. So they make a modest contribution, and most of them are more than happy to do that because they see the value of the program to them. So it's the corporate partners who are really investing in the program, and we see this as a long-term partnership. We have an 88% retention rate this year of our partners, and they tend to stay with us. Some have been with us since 2018. They tend to add teams and volunteers every year. So they come on board with 1 or 2 teams, and then we've got 3 partners supporting over 100 volunteers each. So they stay with us. It's a long-term partnership. And yes, they provide volunteers so that, they're making that commitment as a company, but they also invest in the program financially. And that helps us to run a very well-managed volunteering opportunity, well supported. We look after the volunteers, we train them, we do DBS checks, we look after the teachers, we provide the laptops and headsets, we develop the program. So we're investing their money into the program and constantly improving the volunteer experience. But we're also helping those companies, as we just said, to improve employee well-being, recruitment, retention, teamwork, productivity. So there's a business benefit to these companies in taking part in our program. So they get a lot out of this. And obviously the children benefit, which is the ultimate aim. So we do believe that it's important for our corporate partners to not only provide the volunteers and to some extent to coordinate. We have a coordinator for each company who helps with the recruitment of the volunteers and to get them through their training and DBS checks. So that's a really important role. But also for these companies to make a financial commitment to show that they truly are committed to our cause, so to literacy, child literacy, and to social mobility, which is a major CSR theme for many corporates these days.
Yeah, and that's totally understandable, all this money volunteering kind of packaging thing. Unfortunately, sometimes if it's pure volunteering and there is no other commitments, and it's more like random, not this well organized, like you said, that you also provide these kind of coordinators which actually compensate for the labor needs in the companies, because somebody has to coordinate volunteering always. So it's easy then to just say that, oh, I'm so busy, and maybe this is not for me, and not kind of people are also kind of getting out of the volunteering opportunities because the company is not invested. So this makes it sure that it's well managed, and corporate have signed these people and they have agreed. So then they actually stick with their commitments, and it's kind of part of well organized volunteering program also from the company side, and that's very important.
It is,
and we face this many times that the management of volunteering is the biggest kind of a problem and challenge in the companies, because there's not enough resources for it and not enough knowledge, and therefore the percentages for attendance is quite low, and then it becomes a little bit random. And in terms of this social value commitments, you cannot then commit because you cannot know whether you will be delivering.
Yes, exactly.
So a lot of challenges then follow after another. And I think this model, what you have, is a very good one, because it supports attendance and it also saves costs from the organization.
Yes. I mean, one thing I always recommend to our corporate partners from the outset is that they get senior management to volunteer themselves. Because that way, a lot of companies, as you know, are now offering between 1 and 6 volunteering days a year.
Yeah.
I actually heard of somebody the other day who offers 10.
Oh,
I know. Wonderful. So most are offering at least 1. Some are offering many more, which is fantastic. But you also hear of people who feel they can't take up those volunteering days because they're too busy, or their manager would not like them to do it because it seemed to be unproductive. So it's really important that senior management should walk the talk when it comes to volunteering, and not just say, well, yes, you can have 2 days a year to do this, but actually do it themselves. And that way they're setting a good example, but they're also experiencing the benefits of volunteering themselves firsthand. And it helps us enormously when it comes to renewing the partnership, because you've got senior level buy-in to that program.
Yeah, well, that's a very good point. It is, of course, discouraging if you know that then you're working during the weekend to cover up the time that you took during the week for volunteering.
That shouldn't happen.
It shouldn't have been like this, because then people and many people do have also volunteering engagement on their free time. So so people are busy, and their time should be respected. But this sounds amazing. You have 120 supporters already, but new regions coming up. So I wish you luck, and I hope that people who are listening to this recording would sign up. Manchester and Birmingham are huge areas, and there is a huge need and increasing need in this kind of a support. So we hope that you get many more supporters soon. Thank you, Sarah. Is there anything else you'd like to say and end this recording with?
I'd just like to say thank you, Tiia, for this opportunity, and I look forward to working with you and What Impact, which I think is a great, very exciting development, bringing corporates and charities together around social value and looking at the metrics and so on, and reporting. So I think it's a great initiative. Sadly, the need for what we're doing is greater than ever. So, we do need more corporate partners and more volunteers, and I'm happy to have a chat with anybody who wants to know more, or just more generally. I'm keen to learn about social value and how it works for companies and how the whole bidding process works. So, be great to have a chat with anybody who can help me to understand that better, so that we can support companies better as well. So I look forward to working with you, Tiia, over the
me too. And everybody, chapter 1 is the name on What Impact, that you can look at the profile and see, whether you could be matching with them. Great. Thank you so much, and see you soon. Okay,
thanks, Tiia.
Bye.